Do your part of the assignment and keep everyone else under surveillance. Welcome to the Grimmbros Chronicles, where we explore together the mysteries of college life. Hello listeners, the time has come. There's no escape, no mercy, no help whatsoever. Classes have officially started. And they were not what I was expecting. Like, at all. I know my past experience has not been exactly pleasant, but still, wow. After that memorable welcoming party, I was I was very nervous about the classes. What would they be like? Would they be more practical or theoretical? And what type of tests would they present? And what about the professors? Would they be nice, smart, old-fashioned, narcissistic jerks who use their students as free labor only to steal their work after failing them for the 7th time and saying that maybe you're not the right fit for this career? Well, let me tell you listeners, there were some pleasant surprises, for the most part. Let's start with Introduction to Media on Mondays. It's taught in the Dorfili building, where most of the communication and media courses are taught, according to the small booklets that Lizzie, Fed and I found amongst our staff the morning after the party. We are not sure how they got here, we are positive we didn't have them before the event, but we all had bigger things to worry about at the time, so we just took them. The building is in the shape of a square, with an inside patio. From the outside, it kind of looks like a church. The walls are covered in statues of men and women from different time periods. Some of them are wearing togas, others have long fluffy dresses, and a few are even rocking t-shirts and ripped jeans. They all have very serious expressions on their faces, looking down on the students approaching the building as if they were judges or critics. Inside, the place is, like any other college building, a maze. Doors, halls and rooms combined without any rhyme or reason, other than to confuse and frustrate the fools that dare to go to class instead of staying in the comfort and safety of their dorms. From time to time, I spotted some posters about some study groups or magic clubs or whatever, but I didn't pay them too much attention as I was in a bit of a hurry. There were also a lot of post-it notes covering the walls. Some of them had text in different languages and writing styles, but others seemed to have weird symbols. Maybe it's a local custom, like instead of graffiti they cover the walls with post-its of their favorite sports teams. And speaking of that, what are the popular local sports? I assume soccer, like in most of Europe, but I should probably take a look at it later. Oh right, back to the first day. At one point, I ran into Fede and we exchanged notes on possible landmarks for orienting ourselves. He seemed to be going to some class called Intro to Bargaining or Commerce or something. We exchanged some notes and warnings, wished each other luck, and quickly went on our separate ways. Eventually, I arrived at the classroom a bit late after getting lost thanks to a wrong turn at the corner that has a blue post-it showing a weird owl with antlers, and I had to sit at the front of the classroom. Luckily, the professor arrived 8 minutes after me, but with style. I was preparing my notebook and writing the directions to the classroom when we started hearing sound. It was very low at first, but it grew stronger and stronger, and we quickly realized it was someone playing a flute and getting closer. I thought it was probably a student trying to get the title of class clown, You know, there's always someone like that. Or maybe we were near a band practice. But then the door was opened by a kick and she entered. Not too tall, not too short, with long violet wavy hair, wearing a long green dress with a leather jacket on top and a hat, a Homburg with a red feather, dancing and playing a flute as she came into the room, get to her desk and sit on it as she laid her satchel on the chair. We were all amazed. We were very amazed. That was the best entrance I've ever seen on a college professor in all my years. 10 out of 10. She looked at every one of us as we tried to pick our jaws from the floor and then introduced herself. Professor Anne Melody Nuth. She's been a professor here for longer than she cares to remember, and she welcomed us to the university as well as, according to her, the most important course you will ever take, or at the very least, the most memorable one. I must say, listeners, I was feeling a bit skeptical, but given that entrance, I'm willing to give her a chance. She started asking us to introduce ourselves and say something interesting about our lives. I'm not going to repeat all 20 answers because, well, no. But I will tell you the ones that caught my attention. There was Lizzie, who just said, "I'm Lizzie and I'm here," and that was it. There was also Cindy, who said she liked to try new footwear every day, pointing to a pink pair of leather ballet shoes that she was wearing. And there was also Gerard, a rather hairy guy who said, "I'm Gerard and I like telling stories." That caught Professor Anne's, as she's told us to call her, attention, and she started rapid firing him a bunch of questions about his storytelling technique, which he tried to answer but failed to keep up. After we had all introduced ourselves, she gave us the basics of the class: schedule, syllabus, exams, oral exams of course, and told us to get some books that we would be using during the semester. I was a bit surprised that we would not use any digital material in this class, but when I asked Anne about it, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you can find a digital version of any of the books we'll use, I'll give you 1 extra point in the next midterm." I took the challenge, as in, I just nodded quietly. No need to make a big deal out of it. I'll just have to do some online book hunting later. No big deal. She continued explaining that the origin of modern media and communication are basically folk tales and stories. So we would focus on that. The class was interesting. It started as a lecture, but then she asked us to tell her stories, either of us or people we know. The rest of the time was spent with the students exchanging local tales and myths from where they lived. I listened to them. Some of the tales were quite bizarre, especially the one about the Polish creature that kneads for the souls of the people it eats. At the end of the class, Anne just dismissed us and didn't give us any homework, which made her my favorite professor so far. The next day we had Journalism 101 with the distinguished Professor Rupert Alexander Krautbottom. The class is taught on the other end of the same building as Intro to Media, but the classrooms there seem to be darker. The walls are a greyish color, the windows are smaller, there are more artificial lights, and the general atmosphere feels somewhat oppressive. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something feels off about that whole area. I found my way there quickly this time, thanks to a guy in a reddish robe who seemed busy looking for something. He saw me, and as soon as I told him where I was going, he pointed me in the right direction. Now that I think about it, he may have tried to tell me something else, but I was in a hurry. If that person is listening to this, sorry dude. We got to our seats, and this time I managed to get one in the back of the classroom, but apparently that was the wrong move, as Professor Cropbottom seemed to think that any student that does not sit in the first row of the class does not care about his class. Right after writing on the blackboard the schedule, syllabus, and books we would use, he started a very long lecture about what journalism is, what it should be, how far it's fallen, and how much of a mockery of the very concept of journalism online media is, how honorable and distinguished of a profession it used to be, not the profit-seeking, boot-leaking, guest-selling charlatans that call themselves journalists these days. That it used to be a calling, the fourth power, and now it's entertainment. If this feels like a rant, listeners, congratulations. It's like you were there with us. And I'm sorry. The one thing that caught my attention was that during the lecture, the professor was, well, I think he was studying us. It was a curious thing, listeners. He would be talking and pacing from one end of the classroom to the other one, but his eyes seemed to have a mind of their own as they were going from student to student, stopping a few seconds on each of us and then moving on to the next one. After what felt like an eternity spent trapped in a grey classroom, the professor just stopped, told the class to find a piece of news, and to prepare to talk about it for 20 minutes the next class. And before he left, he mentioned that he expected real news. What did he mean by that? Your guess is as good as mine, listeners, so please don't hesitate to let me know. So, before I talk about the third course, let's hear from our sponsors. Do you like the news? Do you like knowing what's happening outside your door? Do you feel powerful knowing things that the people around you probably don't? Do you like gossip, sports, entertainment, economy? Really? You care about the economy? Okay. Then you'll probably like the Grim Times, the best and, as far as we know, official and only Grimmbros University's newspaper. If you want to subscribe, come to our offices next to the Dorofili building, knock on the red door, and wait 3 seconds. A copy of the newspaper will be left every Sunday at your door. Don't worry, we know where you sleep. If you want to give us any tips or information, slip a message under the cerulean door next to the red one. Or if it's what a certain college professor would call real news, leave the message in room 13 in Jacob Hall. Wednesday was chilled. No classes that day, so I decided to find out what that brokic thing was that the director, Miss Hoffman, mentioned at the party. Turns out, there is a town next to the university. It's about 20 minutes on foot, and you have to go through what looks like the campus main entrance. I don't know how I didn't see that before, listeners. It's a massive steel gate adorned with wolves and owls and the university's logo. I guess it was a very busy week. Finally, on Thursday, I had Stealth 101. Now, listeners, I know what you're thinking. Why? Why am I, a communications major with a successful podcast, would want to learn to be stealthy? Well, there's actually a couple of reasons. First, it's mandatory for all GU students to take at least one physical education class, and I was not going to take Body Language for Socializing 101 or sports. Second, being able to move without being seen or heard could be useful. You know, for getting the scoop, or in and out of places people don't want you to be, and if it helps me escape easily from social situations, uncomfortable social situations, even better. The class was taught by Professor Dante Rax. He's a very creepy guy. I'm sorry listeners, but he's just creepy. The man is almost 6'2", quite muscular and with some tribal tattoos covering most of his face and hands, which made it very impressive that he somehow appeared in front of the 7 of us without anyone noticing. This was right at the edge of the woods at the exact time the class started. He took a good look at us and told us in a thick accent that he doesn't care for classrooms, as nature is the perfect place for learning the art of disappearing from people's minds and senses. And so the class started. The lesson lasted 90 minutes, but recovering from all that physical activity will take me months. Maybe sports were not so bad after all. Maybe. On the other hand, Professor DR, he doesn't like people using his name, told a couple of us that we have potential. I think I was the only one who heard him though, as the other 2 guys, a tall girl wearing a red tiara and a lanky guy with a braided beard and a bandolier full of colorful pins, they seemed to have passed out from exhaustion at that time. So, all in all, I think this was a promising beginning, listeners. Let's hope things remain like this for a long time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get some ice for my everything. Ow! Oh, Fede and Lizzie got their slotted bracelets too. It's a funny story that I'll tell you later. Until next time, listeners, and watch out for group assignments. The Grimmbros Chronicles is written and produced by Ignacio Mengo. The voice of Jason Kelch is Ignacio Mengo. The ending theme was made by Matías Silveira. Follow him on Instagram at @LluviaTorrencialWeb. Questions? Comments? Follow us on Twitter at GrimmbroSU or on Instagram at drmengus. And remember, group assignments can be anywhere.